DCD Virginia. It's been a wonderful trip. First takeaway, first and foremost, is liquid cooling is coming extremely fast and hitting the industry hard. There are a lot of components and players, and everybody and their brother wants to be a part of it, and everybody needs to be a part of it, frankly, for it to work properly. So what will be interesting on the liquid cooling side is to see how that gets defined as time goes on, and what that means for everybody that is in the supply chain and is part of this design from an overall perspective. And how do we support customers and the needs that are ever changing with the industry and how it's going right now. Day 2 at DCD Virginia, learning a lot right now about liquid cooling, power constraints. There's so much hitting the industry right now that is just absolutely going to change the landscape of what's going to happen on new builds, on rip and replace situations. Where does the power come from? What happens with some of these design considerations as liquid cooling, air cooling, all that stuff gets managed for some of these build outs, that there's so much that's not defined in the industry right now. What does that look like in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? And how does a company like Maysteel step up and become somebody within the design chain, within the supply chain, that can be not only useful for the customization needs, but beyond that? And how do we look at something that from a longevity standpoint makes us continually more valuable to some of our end users and partners within the industry? Second takeaway from DCD Virginia 2024, power constraints. Power is going through the roof, and the needs on how it gets there is not only a challenge, but it's something that is top of mind for everybody. And how does the connectivity fit in with that? How does all the infrastructure that supports that fit in with that? What happens with the densification of the infrastructure, and how does a company like Maysteel fit into that mix to not only support from a racking system perspective and floor mounted devices, but how do we get deeper into the air cooled combination with the floor mounted racking systems, and how do we make sure that those things are congruent with what is needed not only this year but next year as things continue to densify. Final takeaway from DCD Virginia: when you start to look at the partnerships that are already established in this industry and how those need to continue to not only be strong but to get even more in depth and less siloed with each other, how do we get more people at the table as soon as possible up front for some of these things that need to happen, so that it doesn't turn into a situation where everybody has their own solution, they come to the table and it feels like things are kind of piece parted together? How do we partner more often and be okay with potentially locking elbows with maybe certain competitors, because together we can support a certain end user or end users in a way that is supportive of the overall industry, if we can just make things happen in a more cohesive way. So I think that's a big takeaway, and it's been an awesome conference, and looking forward to next year.